Hello, my name is Jacqueline Pollauf, and today I am excited to announce that I have a new exercise book coming out this fall, the fall of 2020. It's a book called Glissando Exercises, and in it there are 50 incremental exercises all about playing glissandos on the harp. It's similar to some of my earlier exercise books, exercises in harmonics and pedal exercises for harp, in that it's really focused in on this one technical skill and moves through working on that in a lot of different scenarios. So I'm going to do a few different videos this fall about glissandos, and what I wanted to do today was to talk about them from a purely technical standpoint. So I'm not going to talk about glissandos within music or glissandos within exercises or anything like that today. I'm just going to focus in on how you play different types of glissandos on the harp and some little tips and tricks for ways to approach them from a physical standpoint. And then at the end of the video, I'll tell you a bit more about the new book, Glissando Exercises. A glissando, or what most people shorten and just call a gliss, is an instantly recognizable sound on the harp. Or you could have. And glisses come up all over the place in all kinds of music, and depending on the type of gliss and a lot of the details surrounding it, they can be either quite simple or really complex. I think when you're just starting out, one of the simplest types of glisses to play are to just play a single gliss, either ascending or descending. So if you were to do an ascending gliss, generally you use your second finger, the index finger, and you just pull it along the strings, like so. And you could also do that same thing with the left hand. And generally, if I'm doing a gliss like that, I think about my forearm and my elbow and kind of having them draw the hand up the strings. Then for a descending gliss, most people use their thumb, and it's sort of the opposite, where the hand is leading rather than the arm and the elbow, so the hand is drawing the thumb down the strings. Or again with the left hand. Once your ascending and descending glisses are going well individually, you could try putting them together for one long continuous gliss. So I'm going to ascend with the right hand, and when I reach the top, the left hand will take over and start descending. And when I'm doing that, I'm really thinking about having the hand that is not playing ready in advance, so that by the time I make it to the top, this hand is already set up and can just take right over, and then the opposite here. So I'm coming down, but this hand is ready before I get there and can take over for its glissando. The other thing I'm thinking about is trying to watch and see that I play all of the strings all the way up, so there's not a gap. I don't gliss up to say the F string and then take over with the C string. Instead, I gliss all the way up to the B string right below the C string before I take over, and then vice versa at the bottom. And one thing that comes up for a lot of people with glisses is trying to have a nice clean sound. It's entirely possible and not that difficult to get kind of an ugly sound. Maybe a bit of your nail is catching in the sound, or it's just not as clean as you would like. So if that's happening, you can think about how your finger is approaching the strings. And there's a couple of different ways you can think about that. You could think about whether your finger is horizontal or vertical on the strings. Generally, I go for a fairly horizontal finger, but depending on the shape of your hand and your fingers and everything, there are some sort of individualized variations you might make. And then you can also think about the tilt of your finger on the string, so whether you're kind of coming around this way or back this way. A lot of times that takes a little bit of experimentation to see what a good amount of tilt is, so that you're getting the nice fleshy part of your finger, but you're not catching the nail at all. Another fun thing you can do with your individual glissandos is you can overlap them. So here I'm just going to play a series of ascending glissandos, and every time I reach the top, the other hand will take over and do a new ascending glissando. And you could, of course, also make that the same thing but descending. So in that, it's all the same scales that you were just using, but there's that moment when you're reaching the top and also thinking about starting over again at the bottom. So it's just a little bit more coordination. A lot of playing glissandos comes down to having good coordination for all these things to keep in mind at the same time. Next, let's talk about what most people call a turnaround, which is where you're playing a gliss and then you change directions, but you keep it all in the same hand. So rather than trading off hands when you get to the top, you just stick with the same hand. So if you're going to do this, starting with an ascending gliss and then switching to descending, what you do is you gliss up, 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 up. Then you prepare your thumb, so it's kind of hovering, ready to reach out and grab the strings. And generally you want to think about getting your second finger as close as possible to the thumb before it takes over and starts coming right back down. So you're going up, the thumb reaches out, comes right back down. And then to do it the opposite way, where you're descending and you flip to ascending, what a lot of people do is they come down, 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 down. Then they kind of make their hand go up a little bit and make this shape during the turnaround. So you're doing a bit of a loop. And then you flip over to your second finger. The nice thing about making that little bit of a loop is it gives you more room to get your finger onto the string so that it's not reaching way out here, but instead you have a nice close turnaround. Like so. And a lot of people find this tricky in order to be able to do this smoothly and cleanly without changing the speed of their glissando dramatically. It takes some practice. But once you have it down, then you can just do a continuous glissando all in one hand where you just keep flipping and flipping and flipping. And frequently within music, then the other hand, is playing something else at the same time. Now we have crossing glisses, which are quite fun. This is where you have two glisses going in opposite directions. And the way I did it just now, it's actually just using the same scales as your individual ascending and descending glisses, just the hands are going in opposite directions. So that's fairly straightforward. You could try adding your turnarounds in, so that then you would have crossing glisses that are also continuous at the same time. And that could actually be a great way to check and see how your turnarounds are coming along, whether they're really automatic or whether you're having to slow down a lot to think at the ends and then you speed back up. So if they're going well and they are really automatic, then you can just keep the speed of the gliss exactly the same, regardless of where you are within it. Sometimes within a piece of music, a gliss might end really precisely. So maybe you gliss up, 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 and then end on a single note, or you could end on a chord, or maybe an octave. And of course, all of that could happen the other way around too. So with glisses with endings, generally I think about having the opposite hand ready and waiting on the string or strings in question. And then as I'm glissing, I try to gliss right up to the string just below the one I'm about to play. So it's very smooth. It almost sounds like a scale at the end there. And then the same thing going the other way around. I'm glissing down, 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 down. I'm going to gliss all the way to the D string, and then the other hand will play the chord starting on C. You can also have an ending, but keep it in the same hand rather than the opposite hand. So you could be glissing up, 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 and then play that last string with the same hand. So in that case, what I do is I reach the string and then I think about plucking as normal rather than sliding on it. Or you could do it with maybe, say, a fifth, where you just add your thumb and also pluck with that. And going down, the thumb could land on the C, add the fourth finger to the C below, and then you would have an end with an octave, all in the same hand. One interesting way that you can combine glisses is to have parallel glisses. So I could have my right hand on C, my left hand on C an octave lower, and then I'm going to play 2 ascending glisses simultaneously and maintain that distance. And back down. And really the thing to focus on there is the distance between the 2 hands. So unless your glisses are at exactly the same speed, it's really easy to have the distance be corrupted a little bit. So if I play and my left hand starts going faster than my right hand, it will sort of catch up. So I'll start an octave apart, but then by the time I get here, I'm only a fourth apart. The left hand has gained on the right hand. Or you could have the opposite, where maybe the right hand takes off and all of a sudden you're almost 2 octaves apart. So really focusing in on that distance. And of course you could combine that with some turnarounds. You could also do it at different distances. So maybe on purpose you want to have it just a third apart, a very short distance between the 2 hands. Or back down. A lot of different variations within that. So perhaps you're at home and you're feeling great about your glisses. You can do all the different types, all the different combinations. You've checked in to make sure that your sound is nice and clean and adjusted the angle of your fingers on the strings. And you've thought about the speed of your gliss, so you don't speed up on the easy parts and slow down on the tricky parts. And so everything is in really good shape. And you're wondering, is there more to do yet? And the answer is yes, actually. Glisses can get even more complicated than this. So one of the trickiest scenarios with a gliss is where you have a gliss that is a double parallel gliss, but one hand is doing something else. So you only have a single hand available to do this double gliss. And this can be done, actually. What you do is, this only works for glisses that are close together. You couldn't have a gliss that's an octave apart. But say you've got a gliss that's a third apart and you want to do it all in one hand. You use fingers 2 and 3, so I have them on the E and C strings. And then you can go ahead and pull your fingers along for the gliss. There's something strange that you can do in the details with this, which is that if you do what I just did and use a fairly normal hand position, generally the bottom finger will chop off the sound of the top one and you'll get kind of a messy gliss. So the way that a lot of people play their double glisses instead is to take their hand and have the fingers point up. This is really strange. This is not a hand position pretty much anyone uses in classical harp. But you use it for this. So you have your fingers pointing vertically up towards the top of the harp, and then you pull your fingers along, and the gliss gets a lot cleaner. Because this isn't a hand position that is used for anything, usually the first few times you try it, it feels really awkward and really strange, but it does work well. Then if you're doing a descending double gliss, you actually do not usually use your thumb. Instead, you still use fingers 2 and 3, and you still have them pointing up. Although instead of just being really parallel, you kind of turn your hand back over a little bit. So it's both pointing up and backwards, even stranger. And then you drag your hand down along the strings, like so. To take that idea even further, you can also do a triple gliss all in one hand. So in this instance, you would have fingers 2, 3, and 4 all set up on the strings, and again, all pointing up vertically. And then you can gliss like so, or you could do the same thing coming down, still the same fingering, fingers 2, 3, and 4, and again, pointing up and back at the same time, like that. And the reason for these glisses all in one hand is, of course, that the other hand might be doing something different while you're doing that. Sometimes what that something different is doing its own multiple gliss. So you could actually have 6 notes in your gliss, 3 in each hand, and then 3 in each hand going back down. So the multiple glisses within one hand are definitely quite tricky and take some practice to feel comfortable with, but they do come up from time to time in various pieces of music. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I have this new book, Glissando Exercises, coming out this fall of 2020, which I'm really excited about and proud of. But I wrote this book, like my other exercise books, out of need that arose in working with my own students. And what I found was that a lot of my students would be comfortable with a couple of kinds of glisses, but not others. And some types just didn't come up with much in music, and then all of a sudden they might have an orchestra part with a particular type of gliss that it turns out they had never done before, and that could be, kind of a high-stakes situation to learn that skill right then and there. So I wanted to have a book of exercises that worked through all the different types of glissandos incrementally, which is what the book does. There are 50 exercises in it. And I also found that a lot of students found some of the more challenging aspects of glissandos, not so much the actual technique involved, but kind of the details surrounding it. So I wanted to have exercises that were really precise in the starting and ending pitches, because that can be quite challenging. That used a lot of different octaves on the harp, a various range, that used the right hands and the left hands equally. Some people have a strong preference for one hand or the other, but it's not always possible to use that hand within a piece of music. And also the two, I think, biggest areas, which are the rhythm and the length of the gliss. So a lot of people like to do kind of a medium length, medium speed gliss like this. But say if they have to do a really slow, short gliss, that's a lot trickier. Or maybe they have to do a really long, really fast gliss. Something like that can also be really challenging. So throughout all of the exercises in the book, the rhythm and the length of the gliss just keep changing and changing and changing, so that you're forced to do all of the scenarios for that, the ones that you do like and the ones that you don't like, both scenarios. So I will put some links to the book with more information and places to purchase it below in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video and gotten some great ideas about how to practice and learn glisses on the harp.